Welcome today. I am delighted to have these speakers with us today. As a mother of 5 children, now all young adults, who consider themselves to be somewhere on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, I find that education and bringing awareness and helping people understand that these are lovely, wonderful human beings is really important. So with that, I invite our speakers, Nick, Kathy, and Tabitha, to take it away.
Dad, can we do some light? Can we turn on the lights? Yeah, while they're speaking.
Oh, well, I don't know where we're
straight
going.
to the film, so.
Well, this is just a loop with information.
Oh, okay.
I think we're all going to introduce ourselves. I'm Kathy Sprague. I was born in Pullman. Gosh. Around the time that the Dick Van Dyke Show went to color. So, 1965. I spent most of my life here. I moved away for a few years, lived on Capitol Hill in Seattle in the predominantly gay neighborhood up there. It was a great experience, but I am a small town girl and I love Moscow. I own Safari Pearl Comics. I own that with my wife Tabitha. We were the first couple to same-sex couple to be given a marriage license and to file it in the state of Idaho. Lake County considered us married. The state of Idaho Records Office did not, and we had to file a second marriage certificate at one point. But we are indeed married. We had our first ceremony with our friends in 1991. And I'm going to pass it on probably. Who wants to go next? All right, and my wife Tabitha.
I was born in Moscow, just prior to that other Tabitha. My parents met while attending U of I, and we moved around the West Coast for a while with Dad doing the Navy thing. Came back here in the late 70s, and my dad was the manager of the Chamber of Commerce for many, many years. So very deep roots in Moscow. Love living here, and as Kathy said, we run our store. We also run the Tabby Cat drag shows, which you might have heard of. Trying to do everything we can to make the Palouse a more hospitable place for young queer folk to be safe and seen and accepted.
Now enter the young queer folk that they create space for. My name is Nick. I am not from the Palouse. I'm originally from Kentucky, to parents of a conservative Catholic. They're an interesting group. Kim and Tom are my parents. I stayed in Kentucky for 22 years of my life, then lived in England for a year, and then now I'm here studying for a PhD, mainly focusing on climate change. But I also love community organizing, and I knew I wanted to help with kind of food justice work and climate justice work, hence how I got involved with Inlet Oasis and the West Side Food Pantry, which Kathy and Tabitha have been heading up, and then I do drag with them with Tabby Cat Productions. I'm one of their girls that I perform with them. And I found I've been on the Palouse now for almost a full 2 years, which has been really awesome. And I found just a lovely community here, especially with these 2 women, just really being a touchstone and a cornerstone of our community, especially the queer community. So it's just been a privilege to kind of seek shelter with these 2 women. Really amazing.
So I think the focus is on what it's like to live in a rural area and be queer. It's very different because we don't have our own bar, we don't have our own neighborhoods, we have to work a lot harder to create our safe space. I think We have done an amazing job in Moscow, and that's a large part because of the university, because Moscow has so many wonderful, accepting people. And I'm just gonna share a very random thought. I was scrolling Facebook a few years ago, and there's a woman who had typed, "Fuck my life, FML, my cat shit outside of its litter box." The very next quote, very next post was a woman who had just lost her life partner. And she said, "I'm so grateful for the beautiful people in my life who are supporting me through this." So I think what we all have to take out of it is that we make our own lives, we make our own realities. But our reality is that every day someone might walk into John's Alley during a drag show and try to kill us. We had a drag show 2 weeks after the shooting in Colorado. We walk down the street, someone might drive by and yell obscenities at us. We might be denied service in a business because of who we are or who they perceive us to be. So for you to support us, please be mindful of the stress on us on a daily basis. We can try to be as positive as we can, but we need you to support us. And when you see these things happen, speak up. That is critical to our well-being, just to know that y'all have our backs.
So I think the next question is how do I do that? How do I be supportive without stepping on someone's toes? As I've gotten a little older, it has become more difficult for me to remember that the things that I think will be moving everything forward aren't necessarily the same things that other folks think are the right things to be doing. Ask. Just ask. If you know, it's as simple as a very offhanded asking someone, "What pronouns do you prefer?" Or even doing something like that and being supportive in a much less confrontational way and saying, "Hi, my name is blah, 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 pronouns are she, her." That way you just let folks know and everyone around you hear in a way that that allows or creates that space for others. But if you don't know what words to use, try first to ask someone who's not currently doing the heavy lifting, if that makes sense. When you see someone who is obviously struggling in a situation, standing behind them, making sure that they know that you have their back is sometimes the best thing that you can do, even if you're not saying a single word. The physical presence in your wings. And then when you get to a point where that person is feeling less confronted, ask how they want you to help. That's the hardest thing for me to remember is asking what they need from me. But it's the most powerful question there is, I think.
Also, I've heard that you all might have been shared a film. I don't know if you all watched it yet or not. I think that's one of the best ways as well, is to just enjoy the queer media and queer joy that we've produced and we've been a part of. That might mean the stuff that's online, right? Like the Out in the Middle of Nowhere film that I got to watch, and it brought me to tears every time I watch it. So I don't watch it all that often because I don't want to cry every single day. But then also the other forms of media that queer just kind of lives produce. There's so much hate and so much hatred, as you might see some of the Idaho legislation that's being passed. So I'll give you a quick story. I'm an educator on campus, so I had I had a Zoom call the other day, and this just goes to show the like kind of struggles of what is like horrendous pieces of legislation that they're passing. They passed a pronoun bill, and so I found myself on a Zoom call with one of the University of Idaho attorneys, and the law states if I have a minor in all my classes and they use non-binarized pronouns or pronouns that don't agree with their sex assigned at birth, I have to get parental consent to use those pronouns that they prefer, just to show the lengths at which one has to go to feel comfortable in the classroom. So that's just like one anecdote. Another one is there's people at the university who are currently losing their healthcare because of the anti-trans healthcare law, so no public funds can go to trans healthcare, but often you can't isolate and disentangle one's trans healthcare with their real healthcare, which trans healthcare is real healthcare, so that there's people who have lupus who also have trans healthcare, and they're now having to struggle to figure out how they're going to juggle those two sorts. So the reasons that they are confronted with this, and if they want to leave, that's totally understood. I wish that we could keep those beautiful trans lives in our community. But that's just some of the specific struggles. And that's so harm-centered, but that's why I also try to bring up the queer joy and the queer kind of art that we produce, such as drag, such as the media, as well as just broadly, just there's so much going on in our community. And if you want to see more of it, you can just follow Tabby Cat Productions, of course, but there's also a lot of other beautiful things that the WSU has been putting together recently, and the U of I, as well as the Latah Historical Society on preserving and protecting queer histories and queers.
Do you have any questions for us or any feedback? We're just kind of winging it. We didn't really plan this. We all had the Diva night last night.
Was anybody at Diva night last night? It was really.
Tell us about Diva Night.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many people here remember Terry G, but a lot of it was in her memory because she started the Diva Nights. And so they raised, Bands Off Moscow raised over $8,000 for bodily autonomy, fighting bad legislation and trying to change some of the Idaho laws back so that maybe there will be prenatal and postnatal and maternity health care in some of our counties again. 22% of those doctors have already left the state.
With 55% of the emergency maternal health care providers leaving as well. So these numbers are like astronomically crazy, like including like potential airlifts out of our state to go to surrounding states to see.
Yeah, they are suggesting that women buy flight insurance so that they can be airlifted if there are complications with their pregnancies, because they cannot access this healthcare in Idaho in many counties. This is absolutely horrific. And the same people who want those laws passed, who want to do this harm to pregnant women, are also those pregnant folks. Yes, I slip up a lot. But those same people who are attacking those folks are attacking trans folk, want to outlaw drag in the state. Drag story times. To me, drag story time is Akasha Delusty reading a book about gay penguins hatching an egg and raising a child and crying, not about any sort of grooming. She's thinking of her own children that she and her husband have adopted out of the foster system, who are very badly damaged from their family of origin, and they have gone miles to try to restore the mental and physical health of these children. And now people are saying that because she does drag, she's grooming children. Grooming them what? To be loving and accepting. We can point at other organizations that do have a history of grooming children and harming children and sheltering pedophiles, but I don't want to get into that today. But the attacks on us, it gets old and it's ridiculous. And my biggest fear is that people will be afraid to go to events with drag queens or be afraid to sponsor Pride because the opposition has now set the ground rules. They have created this culture of fear that maybe drag is bad and evil. And the most important thing we can do is just to say, no, it's not. Don't let them win.
Can you elaborate on like the history and importance of drag?
That's Stonewall, baby.
Yeah, so drag actually originates to the late 1800s. There was a black drag queen, Swaney, three names, I can't remember the name right now. You can search it online, but it was a black drag queen who really got this going. It's to kind of prod and poke fun at white supremacist patriarchy. And that's the origins of it. So when people think, oh, drag is new because they once heard about or watched some RuPaul's Drag Race, it goes well before that. And then fast forward, was it Thursday? Was the 52nd anniversary of the Stonewall riots? So that's the origin of Pride as well, which is intrinsically tied with drag. Drag is definitely a part of the queer trans kind of umbrella, but it's also not all of our kind of queer art and queer lived experiences. But yeah, 52 years ago, just the past day was the Stonewall riots, which was in New York City, and somebody threw a brick, basically. So Pride really started from kind of a really radical space of civil disobedience rather than what we might see today, which is something maybe a bit more rainbow-filled, which we need to keep at the center that our history of Pride comes from a very, very kind of Black-dominated and Black-led riots in New York City, rather than what we might see today, or what's kind of is termed rainbow washed today. And what we do in the Palouse, we have Palouse Pride coming up in August 22nd to the 25th, maybe? I should know these dates. 22nd to the 25th is when we do our Palouse Pride because the university is here. We always have a march on the Saturday leading to Pride in the Park. And then when we say like Pride sponsorships, what you might see in bigger cities is like Chase Bank sponsoring Pride. What we do here is all the money for our sponsorships goes to basically Inland Oasis, which supports the West Side Food Pantry, which feeds 2,000 families per month and 140,000 pounds of food a year. So the money that people donate or sponsor towards our Pride is really just going back to feed poor and working class folks in our community. Yeah. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but
Yeah. I have a confession. I did not go to the Diva show last night. My wife did, and she had a great time, and she's debriefed me. I was physically just worn out. I'd been working too hard, and I ended up watching a very unsatisfactory baseball game on the TV. So I'm sorry I didn't go, really, but seriously, I'm about as normal, whatever that is, and the thing that I note, and I don't really know anything about, is other friends, many of them, are just, they fear, they're afraid of you. Why? What can be done there? To me, it doesn't make any sense. It's a little crazy, but I think it is true.
It is true, and that's what's unfortunate.
So,
It is true that we're feared, and a lot of that is propaganda from folks who are hoping that the folks who attend other churches will put additional money into their plate so that they can protect them. It really, I mean, even anti-choice legislation was a product of a couple of evangelical pastors discovering that they could make a whole lot of money convincing people that it was wrong in all cases. And so we are now an easy target because it's difficult to come out. It's difficult to just live your life in the face of that fear. You see it in people's eyes when they realize that you are part of the queer community, and their eyes and posture change. The best thing that you can do is just shake someone's hand, get to know them, lean in to getting to know them, rather than leaning away out of fear. And when you do that, introduce them to a friend. Get to know them first, and introduce them to a friend, and let them see them as people. See us as people. Point to some of the contributions that we make, and the fact that we really, aside from who we love, we're no different than you are. We have the same goals, we have the same aspirations, and in most cases, the same fears. We just have an extra layer of those fears added on, which makes it difficult for us to sometimes walk into a room full of heteronormative folks and be open about who we are. Because it's scary knowing that things could change, and if someone is adamant that you are evil, most others won't say a word. You can be the person that says the word and stops it.
Well,
I'm sure you do.
I can be assured that you frequently could be afraid of others like me, more or less. But how should we, who are the majority and have all the power, should be afraid of you? That still is something I can't understand.
You might catch a disease.
I guess.
A disease of being queer, I guess.
Some of it is a lack of understanding. Some of it, though, is an attempt to create an other that will have people who don't want to be perceived as that fall into line.
All about control.
Yes, all of this is about control.
I think also we need to look at like the systemic origin of why people have the fear, right? And it's because there was forced exclusion of queer trans histories in our educational system. So what was substituted in that vacuum was fear, and was to have control over queer trans histories. Because like, how many of you all have had like any form of queer history in a formal educational setting, right? Yeah, exactly. Like we have to seek it out. We have to go to those efforts. Just as, I mean, this just goes back to like the, not just forced exclusion of queer trans livelihoods, but also Black and Indigenous histories in our kind of educational system. So I think that's one of the biggest things is for people to do is if they fear queer trans people, hand them like a book or a video, like the movie, and just like have them watch it and then be like, oh wow, what is there to fear about folks like them, right? I think that's one of the best things.
I have a couple questions. Well, I'll try to keep it to one. Like 2-3 weeks ago, all University of Idaho employees got that horrible email about our healthcare insurance. And I read it and I thought, what a horrible email. How cruel is that? And I didn't think about, I guess after you work with so many people, you forget who's queer, who's all that stuff. And I didn't think about checking in with a student who is transitioning and what a message that sent to people in Idaho, like that they're not wanted. And I think I had to like consciously see the reaction of the student and then go to them and let them know that they're wanted, they're needed, they're very much exactly where they're supposed to be. And I don't blame them for seeking education outside of Idaho. But Idaho's going to miss out on wonderful people like you, Nick, and other people, because they're sending a message through these legislations and these new rules that are telling people that because of who they are, organically, they're not wanted here. And I worry if we do that with LGBTQ are we gonna do that with other people too? And I think we have.
Yep.
So how can we combat that besides voting, or, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll share. I'm gonna just like share what I do at the university, and I choose to be at this university. I have a federal fellowship. I can go to any institution I would like if they will have me, or if I find a PI or a principal investigator to work with. So I could move if I wanted. I chose to be here. I usually tell people at the university that. The second thing is this fall I co-created a new class for the University of Idaho. It's the first ever, I think in the state, climate sciences gen ed, and I'll be teaching it both to the on-campus students as well as to our incarcerated University of Idaho students. The University of Idaho launched a program to where incarcerated folks who are in our prisons throughout the state, Pocatello, and Orofino, as well as potentially Idaho Penitentiary down in Boise. We have around 20 to 30 students currently. We might be going up to 100 this fall. So that's what I'm teaching, I'm teaching on-campus students as well as incarcerated students the basics of climate sciences. If they continue with this kind of stuff, I could leave and that will not exist in our state. And I just say that to, not just to like foreground like my own experiences of like the importance of, like, I love my queer trans self, but I really just want to focus on climate sciences right now, right? That's all I want to do. I don't want to be on the attorney talking about fucking pronouns. I don't want to be on talking to my friends about losing their health care in the state, right? What I want to focus on is our climate sciences. So these little blockades that they're putting is just absurd. I think, of course, voting is one thing, but we are well beyond voting at this point. I've been writing op-eds. You can share op-eds that people have written, but you can also just like check in with people and be like, hey, I love you. What can I do to support you on an individual basis? I think that's super important. I saw one of my friends who lost or is navigating losing their healthcare, and I didn't want to cry because I just went up to him. I said, hey, Inland Oasis has an emergency fund. Reach out to me if you need it. And then I walked away because I couldn't look at them any longer, and I told them that. But I think that that's just one of the big things, is sharing op-eds, calling our legislators or writing to our legislators is something I do a lot. And if you want to learn how to do that, I'd be happy to show you. It's very simple. We can call Russ Fulcher and all those amazing humans, but we can vote them out as well. So supporting those campaigns, Julia Parker, Trish Goodhart, and Kathy Dallas, because they actually support queer trans livelihoods.
That's my, and then, okay, so my other question is, like, do you ever just want to throw in the towel and walk away? Because, like, you just want to live your life. You don't want to have this fight, this advocacy. You're constantly building advocates. You're constantly fighting. Like, when is it, like, it's never going to change? I know it takes what do they say, social changes take, a lifetime. But this has been a battle, like, since I can remember, for people that identify as queer.
Yeah, you got it, okay.
Yes, it's a battle. It's a battle every day. But there are some things we've won, and that's what makes it possible to continue. I look at, my childhood, where the only exposure I had to anyone who was queer was the very public life of Billie Jean King and her separation from her husband and her partnership with the woman who could never be her wife. That was it. That and that gentleman there in my world history class mentioning Stonewall. 15 whole seconds. That was it. That was my exposure. I'm old enough that there was no internet. There wasn't a BBS that was available for queer folk either. But seeing all of that change, in some cases it's feeling the regret and realizing that Sally Ride waited until she died to come out. Anything that I can do to make it better for the next generation. I don't have biological children, but I have folks that mean just as much to me.
I think we have a lot of allies, and right now we need advocates. If y'all can help with some of the heavy lifting, but I never thought that I would actually be holding a marriage certificate in my lifetime. I figured that was the next generation. And the fact that Tabitha and I are married, we had our first ceremony in 1991. 9 years ago, it actually became legal. That's a huge win. But Roe has been rolled back, and that's a huge loss. There's a lot of give and take. We don't win every battle, but I see us advancing the front. We will win this culture war. And some days, yeah, I just want to walk away from it. When Tabitha walked over to me and told me that Clinton had lost Pennsylvania, and we knew that Trump was going to win, I wanted to close the store and just move into the country and walk away. And she said, we can't. We have to maintain this safe space for the kids. And I hated that because she was right. So just help us with the heavy lifting. And when we have a drag show, and that's pure joy, and we can all come together, before there was the internet, before there was Facebook, that's how the queer community in Moscow is kept in touch. We had that monthly get together, and for one evening, we felt normal. There was no outside fear. And so you have to make your joy, and we will continue to make our joy, even though there are days when we just want to walk away.
You're asking just like the most poignant questions, right? Of like, why don't we throw in the towel? I think from my perspective, right, I cannot throw in the towel, right? I have people like this who have done so much heavy lifting and beyond that prior to my existence that I literally cannot. It is not an option for, I think, folks like me to throw in the towel. It's not an option. But we can alleviate that through two ways, right? Fun, and then also rest. We have to rest some, right? Fun and rest is a big part of my kind of just activism and organizing. But I like, it's not an option, right? Like, I can't throw in the towel. Like, we can, there's no towel to throw in because of that, right?
Can you imagine a day though that you don't have to have
Right.
that?
Yeah, that's what I hope for, right? Last night at Diva Night, we had such a fun time, but in one of the little anecdotes I wrote in, I was like, gosh, I look forward to the day when we fight over like more nuanced issues, right? This is not nuanced. This is not nuanced at all. These issues, they might seem complex, but at the basis of it, they're not. They're all about bodily autonomy. That's what really unites so many of our kind of work that we're doing right now, whether it be reproductive rights, queer, trans lives, but also it ties in so much to sex workers, as well as kind of the BIPOC community as well, just wanting to have their own bodies to be able to control themselves, bodies including communities, to be able to be autonomous. But yeah, it's just not an option. We can't throw in the towel. Just like, we can like rest and we can have fun, but we like cannot because of folks before me. As well as like, this past semester I taught some students. I had like a really amazing class of 46 undergrads, and some of them left so many anonymous comments that were like, Nick, thank you so much for being outspoken and just like visibly queer. I've never had somebody like that before. And I didn't have somebody until my junior year of college who was outwardly and openly queer as an educator. So I wanted to make sure I could maybe push it back a few years. Whether I was a junior in college, maybe I could teach some freshmen in college, as well as like going into other school programs. And not talking and trying to convert them to being queer or whatever, just being visible, right? Being visibly non-traditional, maybe if we want to call it that, or wearing a blouse like this in the classroom. It might just introduce to the kiddos that you don't have to dress how maybe the system tells us we have to dress, for example. So I think it's all about being visible. But yeah, we can't throw in the towel. It's not an option.
Over here.
I have one question and one comment. Does the gay community in Idaho have a way to network so you can have regular communication with each other throughout Idaho? Internet is marvelous. Do you have one?
We're working on it. We are working on it.
Okay, so then my follow-up comment, I hope a part of the discussion will acknowledge the tremendous importance of ranked order voting
Oh my God.
as a way to lift us out of this mess we continually find ourselves through my whole lifetime.
If you have not signed the Open Primaries Initiative, you have to. Yeah, you have to.
And
The
then I
Open
have,
Primaries Initiative. You have to put your name on it. It's a must. It's a must.
and then I have one short, less than 3-minute story, if there's time, to give everybody a model that helps me understand the world I live in and deal with these problems on an ongoing, regular basis. But I'll wait and see if there's time.
Other questions?
Well, this is kind of a weird one, but when we helped sponsor the movie downtown, what's the name? On the white.
God and Country.
Yeah, there we go. The church had to hire security. Do you have to hire security for your event, and is that an added expense?
Yes, the year right after they pulled the 31 folks out of the U-Haul in Coeur d'Alene, we usually pay for police security at Pride, and the police supplied extra security that year at no cost to us because they knew that there was the possibility of a genuine threat. 2 weeks after the shooting in Colorado at the bar during the drag show where 6 people were killed, I was wearing Kevlar under the Santa suit. And we had people in the bar who were concealed carrying. And my hope was that I wouldn't have to slow anybody down at the front door, but in a $2,000 Kevlar vest, I figured I could stop them better than anyone else. And that's not a comfortable place to be, but our other option was to cancel, and then they win. And we will never let them win.
And yeah, that's another is Pride in the Park last year as well as last night. We always have exit strategies, right? I dream for the day where we don't have to plan for where we're gonna run if there's an active shooter, for example. Right? Akasha telling her kids, this is where you run if there's a shooter, and this is how you knock on a door and tell them you need help, right? I dream for the day where we don't have to do that, right? We have to do that so that we can still be visible and we can still do these events where we can have joy, because we must have joy, right? And we must have fun. But it's a part of it in Idaho, sadly. Yeah.
Is there any state worse than Idaho? In terms of, are we at the bottom?
I mean, there's so many
We're
layers.
struggling. We are fighting so hard to be the worst.
There's so many layers to the onion, right? There's some states that are pushing more of like a dogmatic religious doctrine in the classroom. I have a complex relationship with the institution of Catholicism. I just don't think that we should have the 10 Commandments forced upon students in the classroom, for example. So that's in Louisiana. We don't have that in Idaho, but we do have some really severe abortion bans in Idaho, while other states might not. So there's a lot of different layers of complexity of what states are the worst for certain things. But yeah, it seems like Idaho's really trying to be the worst at a lot of things recently.
Iris?
Right?
Yeah, so you can tell our congregation is pretty small. And, one of our goals, we've been doing kind of this, you guys are part of our Justice series. We've been trying to educate ourselves and connect more with different segments of the community. And I just wondered if you had any view of like a way for us to welcome LGBTQ Christians who might want to have a safe space in a religious space where they could feel like they could practice and come, or just even an interest in Christianity. They don't have to be like Christian, but
Please come table at Pride.
Oh.
Yeah, set up a table, a business card or full pamphlet. Talk with the people there and tell them that you love them and they are welcome.
Good question, Iris.
Yeah, and we have taken some heat because we open Palouse Pride with a prayer. We have a minister open Pride every year. The reason we do that is because so many young people are conflicted and they have been taught they can either be queer or they can be Christian. And teaching them that they can be both saves lives. The suicide rate for queer people who have been raised in very strict religious households is astronomical, and I don't think folks realize how much blood is on their hands with what they're preaching. But You've got the sign in front of the church, which makes me smile every day when I walk by with my dog. But just, share the rainbow. That's a quick way. Language like open and affirming. Those are the dog whistles to us. That it's a safe space.
Yeah, I think also, right, like queer people, we clock what places are safe or not. Like we actively have a bank in our head of like, oh, I can walk past this place. This is where I can walk this morning. This is where I can't walk this morning. And it's seeing kind of you all visibly show that you're a safe space is one thing. But yeah, come to Pride. And I'm personally not Christian. I have a really complex relationship with Catholicism especially. But if you had a sign that says queer Christians welcome here, right? Like if I were somebody in that position that recently left a church because of a forced kind of separation of Christianity and queerness, then I think that could be a really positive kind of path for somebody who is wanting to kind of work those two and mesh more together. So yeah, come to Pride. And if you table at Pride, great, but you should also just come to Pride. It's really fun, right? And you can see just like a bunch of community all coalescing around kind of our shared love for love. Yeah.
Sorry. Remember drag bingo? Or is that ever going to come back?
It's back.
Oh, is it? It's all family friendly. It's a lot of fun.
Follow Inland Oasis.
Oh, okay. On Facebook?
Yeah. Or
Some
the
of-
website.
Some of us do, some of us give of our time or our money. Some of us are quiet, we don't get super involved, but we support. Could you take those individual categories and say, if you're going to give dollars, here's probably the best, most targeted, where your money will do the most good. If you're going to do in this community, here's, one or two of the most, target. Do you understand what I'm saying, what I'm asking? Could you do that for us before we close?
Yeah. I got this.
I know.
I talk all about this. So,
What's the question? I don't understand the question.
How to be an advocate.
Okay.
yeah, how to be an
Perfect.
active advocate rather than a passive ally. Yeah, I think that's so. In terms of like donor dollars for specifically queer trans kind of lives, Inland Oasis I think is the best kind of. We need monthly donors. That's like kind of point blank what we're looking at. We just need to cover rent so that we can keep the food pantry open. That's our main cost is food pantry and our payroll. We have 2 full-time staff, which are amazing, Jana and Megan. They're both queer and they're both women and they're just both amazing. So that's like the best way I think if you're like looking at donor dollars, Inland Oasis would be great. And just knowing that you're supporting feeding poor and working class people, as well as people who have full-time jobs. We're seeing more and more people come into our pantry who are just struggling to cover cost of groceries and they have full-time jobs and they might have a kid or 2. So we're really seeing a tipping point right now with feeding people. And then if you want to you're welcome to volunteer in our pantry. We have 2-hour blocks. We try to stay open Monday through Saturday, 1 to 7 p.m., but we can't cover all those shifts. But if you want to volunteer our pantry, you can check out our website, PalooseInlandOasis.org, and you can email Jana if you're maybe like a bit uncomfortable with like how to approach volunteering for like a queer organization. The pantry is a really great kind of avenue to get passive education because you're in the umbrella of Inland Oasis, but really you're just working in a pantry. And you get to also meet a lot of really amazing community members who might be struggling with addiction, might be struggling to just cover rent. Also, it's just like families who need some support. We don't check IDs or anything, so you can volunteer in our pantry. And then I think showing up is just a huge thing, right? Like showing up to Pride or showing up to a drag night if you feel maybe a bit more spirited. They are sometimes a bit late. They're like 9 p.m., but they're a really fun time. But we also have drag brunches and drag beaches and an Oasis. I think that kind of covers.
What about affecting legislation? Where would you say would be the best targeted way to, to make a difference?
Donate to Julia Parker, definitely. That, I think, is the race that's going to activate the Gen Z. The younger voters can see a clear difference between Dan Foreman and Julia Parker. Presidential race this year is not activating voters, but that local race is huge. You volunteer with the Dems. They always are looking for precinct captains, you know, if you can't donate money to Julia Parker and you have some time, door knock on her behalf. Go out, knock on doors, talk to people. And if you're not comfortable with any of those roles, you know, just hang a pride flag so that people see them, because it means a lot to walk through a community and see that we at least have the allies who are willing to show those colors and say that they accept us. And sometimes that's, if that's where your energy is at, then that is just as valid.
You also can sign up for a phone bank with Planned Parenthood. It's going to do a lot. It's going to get you into the right things. If you're not comfortable doing a phone bank, bake treats for the folks who are willing. For door knockers, if you're the person who shows up at the end with juice and homemade cookies, that's going to be huge, and it's a great way to support. There's a group called Free Mom Hugs. It's, you know, folks my age and older who are just there to hug the kids that need it. And then for the folks you said who aren't necessarily comfortable being there, and you know, they aren't going to donate. They're just going to quietly support. The hanging the flag, definitely. That's not terribly quiet. Educate yourself, though. Once you look at that packet, you have a few of the buzzwords. The hardest part is figuring out what to search for. But once you know that, there is a wealth of information available. And the important thing to remember is that you can't do research once and stop, because that narrative is always changing. The words that folks want to use to represent themselves or to communicate ideas are always changing. Keep reading. And then at some point, you'll have a quiet opportunity to just speak one-on-one with someone that you know and share a little bit of what you've learned. That is the best way to be a quiet supporter.
I want to reiterate one time. Julia Parker's race is so crucial right now. So we're at a 15-7 kind of breakdown in the Senate, and the race she's running for would flip it to a 14-8. So it's not a supermajority anymore. So Julia Parker, Julia Parker, Julia Parker. She's so, like, I cannot say that enough. Dan Foreman was the guy that sponsored the removing of rape and incest for abortion, right? We need to get the evil, evil man out of office. I cannot say that enough. But we're trying to push along a block of people, Julia Parker, Kathy Dawes, and Trish Carter-Goodhart. But if you want to get involved, you can definitely sign up for their emails. But at the end of the day, we can't focus on just the election. When the Idaho legislation starts back up next year, the Dems put together a legislative roundup or update of kind of the targeted bills that are really heinous and the other ones that are really, really awesome. So watching out for their legislative update, I think, is one of the biggest ways. We have a lot of focus right now in this legislation, or this election specifically on the presidential, but in the past year, I have not been kind of affected by any of the federal legislation. I've been only and solely affected in my day-to-day by state legislation. I know that I'm reaching out the choir on this one, right? But I think that that's something we really, really need to push for. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's also important to get involved with not just voting ourselves, but to understand how voting happens in the state of Idaho. It's very confusing. So if any of you are involved with the League of Women Voters, they do a tremendous job educating students, especially who only have a university ID, and how do they vote in the state of Idaho.
Yeah, so the League of Women Voters is having a Civics 101 evening in Lone Oasis coming up, so definitely check that out on your calendars. That's going to be as a student myself, I'm a resident of Idaho, but they removed it to where students can't vote with a student ID anymore, so they have to go get an Idaho ID, which is just another barrier to vote. And they don't want students to vote, right? Because the Gen Z especially, I saw a stat the other day that Gen Z is more likely to be queer than Republican. So that's why they're blocking this kind of work, right? Is they know who's more likely and they're targeting those groups. So whenever you see oh, we're trying to make the elections more safe, read into that, oh, they want to protect their power. I love that set so much. As somebody who is on the cusp, but I am a Gen Z, I think I'm just starting to come to terms with it. I'm a late stage one, so it's a bit tricky kind of accepting that because they have a kind of certain persona, but also Gen Z is really badass as well, kind of the youth, especially high schoolers right now. But yeah, I think that that's a big thing. League of Women Voters, they also put out an amazing poverty report that Westside Food Pantry is mentioned in, but the work that they do to follow along, especially education focused and understanding that poverty is this massive umbrella that connects and threads together so many marginalized communities together. Yeah, their work is just sensational. And they're bipartisan, and they are staunchly bipartisan, which is amazing. I don't know how they weave that boundary. I'm not bipartisan in the slightest. I don't know how they do it.
No way.
You know, I just was wondering if you knew of any professors who are teaching like gender studies or women's studies at the university that we could invite in future.
Yeah, Lisa Salisbury, if you know her
the
name.
Women's Center, yeah.
Yeah, the Women's Center, and then, yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she would be your best rep.
Yeah, she's just so awesome. Lisa Salisbury. And then I think like Nancy Cheney, she's former mayor. She's like she does a lot of work with the League of Women Voters, and she's a really poignant speaker. I had her speak in my class, and I just absolutely love her. Both of them, Lisa as well. Like Lisa just cannot recommend her. She teaches actively, and that's another piece of legislation that was the anti-DEI bill that was proposed. It was targeted so specifically at the Women's Center, the LGBT Center, but the one that amazed me, I was reading this piece of legislation, this Senate Bill 1357, I can imagine how heinous you have to be to type out that you want to defund the Black and African American Cultural Center, right? Like, what the is going on for you to think that it is, oh, they're taking our public dollars to just do this liberal agenda when it's really just like creating a space for our Black community in town, which is really, really small, but it's still there. I can imagine typing that. I get queer people can be loud and bodacious sometimes, so I can get maybe typing out the LGBT Center, maybe, but the Black and African American Cultural Center, I could not believe that they line itemed that one to remove and defund. Thankfully it didn't pass, but yeah, somebody from the Black and African American Cultural Center I think would be really awesome.
Yeah, we have had them.
Oh, awesome, great. Yeah, can you imagine typing that out of the, oh, that was beyond.
That legislation is likely to be back.
Oh, it will, and it'll probably be even stronger than ever, but that means we have to be stronger than ever.
You probably have at least glanced at these slides. One of them is the public funding for trans healthcare, and that failed twice, and they just kept hammering it, and then it passed. So,
and that movie is just available online, or
it's on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you use the slide version of Thursday's Thoughts or the PDF version, you can click on the link and it'll take you right to the movie. So, yeah.
This is a really ignorant question, but you can just blow it away with some information. Why the extra? You know, it's hard enough to say LGBTQ and then the I and the A and the plus. I mean, why can't we just simplify that? If there's an umbrella term, which queer is.
We can't entirely simplify it because our community is as varied as yours. The only difference is that queer identity. And a lot of folks, at least my age, and do use queer as an umbrella term to try to include all of those things. That's not going to be universal.
Okay.
And that's okay. All of those extra letters are there because if they aren't, we have a tendency to forget them. Even folks like me have a tendency to forget what isn't right there, reminding me that it's all intersectional and I'm better placed than many of them are. And so, you know, when I'm talking about trans folks, it falls on me to be the person who is cisgendered and therefore part of the power structure to do the heavy lifting for them.
One of my favorite examples is, LGBTQIA2S, right? That's kind of the moniker that we use. But you know what 401k, Roth IRAs, CDs are, right? So it's all about how ingrained they are in kind of our everyday lives, right? You know all these jargony words that we use about finances, so why can't we just accept that we're gonna just need to spend the time with being comfortable and more fluid with these words. And if you mess it up, I think the biggest thing is to recognize it and then move on. So many people want to go over the top and being like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But it's just more weight that you're putting on that queer trans person. And yeah, we do generally have that umbrella of queer trans. They are separate, they are overlapping, absolutely. But yeah, like LGBTQIA2S, right? So many letters, but Roth IRA, 401k, CDs, right? We know what these words are, right? And we use them every single day. So it's just about how ingrained they are in our kind of everyday lives. Yeah.
And it's okay to ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't be embarrassed to ask. So, should we invite Dan to give his?
Announcement.
Yep. You
Can
want
we
to
give a round of applause for these guys?
Yes.
Having taught for about 50 years in total, I was always pressed to make things complicated simple. So I'm a very simple man. Here's what helps me get through. All of us in this room are gardeners. Some of you are real gardeners. So my example is, you prepare the soil, you plant the seed, you water, you hope for rain and sunlight. And when the time comes, you harvest. And you know what? You do it all over again. You prepare the soil, etc., etc. And that's how I look at all social problems. They don't go away. We have to be committed to good gardening, good deeds, and good lives. So that's less than 3 minutes.
And pull the weeds out. Pull the weeds out. I throw them out into the road. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Please feel free to mingle with our speakers and ask them more questions.
Yeah.
Is there coffee?
There's coffee and treats in the fellowship hall this way.